afraid of the dark.
Hello, dear listener. Before I start today's story, I want to say thank you for your support. We produce videos every day, and it is very important for us to know that you are happy with the stories. So please feel free to write your opinion in the comments so that we can take into account your wishes and interests. Today I will tell you about how the most ordinary conversation between a son and his father turned into a violent nightmare. This is the kind of ending you will definitely not expect. Enjoy watching and don't forget to like and subscribe. Son, we need to talk about internet safety rules, I said, sitting down on the floor next to my child. His laptop was open, and he was engrossed in playing Minecraft on the public screen. His attention was focused on virtual matters. Messages flashed quickly in the background of the screen, reflecting in the center of the chat window. Son, can you pause your game for a minute? He closed the laptop and looked at me. Dad, are you going to tell me another one of those silly, scary stories again? What I feigned a hurt expression, but then smiled. I thought you liked my stories. My son grew up listening to my tales of children, encounters with witches, ghosts, werewolves, and trolls. Like many parents of his generation, I used scary stories to instill morals and teach safety lessons. Single fathers like me were employed at the level of all parental inheritance, whatever light sources were in their configuration. I loved them when I was 6. But now I'm older, and they don't scare me anymore. They're just silly to me. If you really want to tell an internet story, could you make it very, very scary? I looked at my son skeptically. He crossed his arms and said, Dad, I'm 10 now. I can handle it. Okay, I'll try. And I began the narrative. Once upon a time, there lived a boy named Colby. My son's expression clearly indicated that he wasn't impressed with such a banal introduction. Colby got on the internet and visited several kids' websites. After a while, he started chatting with other kids in gaming chats and forums. He befriended a 10-year-old boy named Helper23. They liked the same video games and cartoons. They laughed at each other's jokes and played new games together. After a few months of friendship, Colby gave Helper23 6 diamonds in the game they played. It was a generous gift. Colby's birthday came up, and Helper23 wanted to send him a cool present in return. Colby decided that it wasn't bad if he gave Helper23 his home address, as long as he promised not to talk to strangers or adults. Helper23 swore not to show it to anyone, not even his parents, and set out to prepare the package. I finished my work and asked my son, "Do you think that was a good idea?" "No," he said, shaking his head. Despite his initial reaction, he was drawn into the storytelling. Colby thought the same. He felt uneasy about giving his home address to someone he hadn't seen before. It felt all grown up and serious. By the time he put on his pajamas and got ready for bed, worry and guilt had completely consumed him. He was about to open up to his parents. The punishment would be severe, but the relief and clear conscience were worth it. He got into bed, expecting his parents to wake him up. My son knew that the scary part was coming. He leaned forward with wide eyes. I deliberately spoke in a whisper. Colby heard all the sounds in the house. The washing machine was running in the bathroom. Branches scratched the brick wall outside the protruding window. His younger brother cooed in his crib. There were other normal household noises. Finally, footsteps sounded in the hallway. "Dad," the boy exclaimed excitedly. "I need to tell you something." His father poked his head into the doorway at a strange angle. In the darkness, it seemed like his mouth wasn't moving, and there was something off about his eyes. "Yes, son," his voice sounded strange too. "Are you okay, Dad?" the boy asked. "Yes," said the father in a strange, fake voice. Colby pulled the blanket up to his chin, and his mom nearby. "I'm here." The mother's head appeared above the father's. Her voice sounded fake too. "Are you going to tell us that you gave your home address to Helper 23? You don't like doing that. We've told you never to disclose personal information on the internet." She continued. "He wasn't a child at all. He just pretended to be one. You know what he did? He broke into our house and killed us both, and all to have some fun with you." A hefty man in a damp jacket appeared in the doorway. In his hands were two severed heads. Colby was horrified as the man tossed one head to the floor, entered the room, and pulled out a knife. My son screamed too, covering his face with his hands. But I wasn't going to stop now that I had started. I had to tell the story to the end. A few hours later, the boy died. His screams turned into weak whimpers, then quieted altogether. In the ensuing silence, the killer heard a baby crying in the adjacent room and pulled the knife out of Colby. There was a special treat in store for him. He had never killed an infant before and anticipated the sweetness of this role. Leaving dead Colby behind, he left his room, entered the nursery, and approached the crib. Lifting the baby into the air, he began to examine him. When he picked up the baby, it stopped crying, looked into the killer's face, and smiled sweetly. The killer had never held a baby before, but he instinctively rocked him and even wiped his bloody hands on the blanket to allow himself to pinch the baby's cheek. "Hello, little one," the killer said softly. Dark desire melted in him, turning into warm and tender feelings. He announced the baby's birth along with the baby. When he got home, he named him William and raised him as his own. I finished my story. My son was visibly shaking. Stammering, he said, "But Dad, my name is William." I gave him a loving smile and ruffled his hair. "Of course, son." "Manin." Forgetting about the computer game, William ran upstairs to his room, sobbing. I think deep down he enjoyed my story.